Its base has a resin coating, so the feed does not stick here. The overall average today is 49 kilograms.
Here, the animals stay from birth until 30 days old. They are fed this TMR, which is provided in the feed bunk without any consumption restrictions.
Today we have approximately 100 lactating cows, fluctuating up to around 105. The total herd consists of 210 animals, including other categories. The high-producing group and primiparous cows are fed 3 times a day. The diet is the same. There is also a sprinkler system here, so now they are having their midday shower. We limit their access to the bedding, and we only carry out reconditioning with the harrow. Then, periodically, as we notice the bedding level lowering, we top it up with fresh sawdust. However, the management I have been describing throughout the farm is not carried out by me, Fabricio, but by the staff working here with us.
Welcome to our channel. I'm here at Nova Esperanza Dairy Farm with Fabricio. We also recorded with Andresa and Ranieri, who invited us to this farm. I hope you enjoy this video. It's a very well organized farm with various signs and labels, an interesting milk production setup, and unique management practices that you will surely learn a lot from in this video. If this is your first time here, subscribe to our channel, like the video, share it with your friends, and enjoy watching.
I'm Andresa. I have a degree in business administration, and I've worked here since before I was born. I take care of the heifer rearing process, but I've worked in all areas since I was 12 years old. Today, I'm a co-owner of the farm, and my responsibilities include the heifer rearing and financial management sectors. I'm going to show you a bit of my daily routine. I start my day with the feeding of the heifer calves. I separate the milk and come here to feed them. This is basically my area. Here we have the nurseries. The animals stay here from birth to 30 days, receiving all the necessary post-birth care, such as navel disinfection, weighing, and colostrum management. They have an environment designed to provide comfort and well-being. We replace clean water and fresh feed daily. We also perform rectal temperature measurements to identify possible illnesses. Additionally, we monitor humidity and temperature to control respiratory diseases because our region has a high thermal amplitude, which promotes the development of such conditions. After this phase, they move to a paired housing system, where they are usually raised in pairs to stimulate feed intake and socialization. After weaning, they transition to this larger socialization area, which also serves as an adaptation space for the post-weaning phase. This prevents them from experiencing significant stress during the transition from milk feeding to weaning. It's a great space where they interact and play. This stage, they rarely develop any illnesses. My biggest challenge is during the 0 to 30-day period. Afterward, it's just about their development, growth, and then moving on to the next stages, breeding and the prenatal phase, before reaching their first calving. I have excellent data on their average daily gain. From birth to weaning, their ADG averages around 1.0 to 1.1 kilograms, which is going well. We have well-defined protocols, and we focus on keeping the environment clean, disinfected, and well-organized. We also ensure smooth communication among team members, so if I'm not present, someone else can take over without disruptions. Our team is highly aligned, which is a major factor in achieving positive results. You can see that the calves are well cared for. Regarding colostrum management, we maintain a colostrum bank, usually enriching it with BRIX. For the first colostrum feeding, we use 30% bricks, and we also provide a second colostrum feeding as support. This approach has resulted in excellent passive immunity. Even when they do fall ill, they recover much faster. We also provide additional support through serum administration to help them recover more quickly. We perform 2 colostrum feedings and continue feeding transition milk for 4 more days. After that, we switch them to fortified milk. We no longer use waste milk, as we found it to be costly. Instead, we now use marketable milk fortified to 14% solids, and that's what they receive. From 0 to 30 days of age, they consume about 7 liters of milk per day. Then it is reduced to 6 liters, and later to 4 liters. Weaning is done gradually rather than abruptly, which minimizes stress. They hardly vocalize or show distress during this process. Water is provided starting from the second day of life, and their water intake during this period is quite substantial. Pelletized concentrate is introduced from the 5th day of life, initially just to stimulate curiosity. By the 15th day, they start consuming some of the pellets. We maintain this feeding routine from 0 to 30 days. From 30 to 60 days, we start offering some roughage, specifically corn silage. In addition to the pelletized concentrate, water is always available, with no restrictions on consumption, and the same applies to the concentrate. After weaning, they receive a TMR, which is the same TMR as the cows, adjusted to meet their nutritional demands based on age. This TMR is provided in the feed bunk without consumption limits, along with the concentrate. Because they have a complete diet, they rarely vocalize, indicating that the process is working well. The results confirm this, as their average daily gain remains very satisfactory. We also use preventive management practices extensively. Vaccinations are given to prevent respiratory diseases and to strengthen their immunity. We also carry out disbudding procedures, ensuring it is as painless as possible by using general anesthesia, local anesthesia, anti-inflammatory medications, healing ointments, and insect repellent sprays. Daily monitoring is performed, and the process has been very effective. They do not experience reduced feed intake, which confirms the success of our disbudding management.
How is the organization of the signs set up? What key information do you include on these signs?
Basically, we include the animal's identification number, its type, and the amount of milk it receives daily. This also helps identify calves that are sick, making communication among the team much easier. For example, calves with green tags are healthy. Those with yellow tags require closer observation, either because they have a fever or appear slightly lethargic, and those with red tags are under treatment. These calves receive extra attention to ensure the treatment is carried out correctly. This system significantly improves communication. Additionally, we have a board where all this information is displayed for the team's reference. I also record measurements, such as rectal temperatures, on a daily basis. We monitor these values along with temperature readings to track health issues related to climate variations. Currently, there's a growing need for studies in this area due to the rise in respiratory diseases. We also maintain spreadsheets with schedules of activities, detailing what tasks are performed on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and so on. We prioritize cleanliness and disinfection to minimize errors when investigating the causes of potential issues. The entire team is aware of these procedures and follows them closely. I also have a backup who is fully trained in all the procedures I implement. She was personally trained by me to follow the farm's methods and standards. We aim to maintain the highest level of organization to simplify processes and optimize time management. Today, we have 7 employees. We are divided into areas such as heifer rearing, milk production, crop management, and organizational tasks. Each person already has predefined responsibilities. We also ensure that there is always a backup in place so that, in case someone is absent, another team member can step in and handle the tasks effectively. The tags include the treatment details, dosage, medication type, route of administration, timing, and any necessary supportive treatments. For example, the tag specifies the medications, the number of treatment days, the schedule, and additional supplements such as serum and probiotic paste. This setup simplifies the administration process for whoever is assigned the task. When it comes to feeding, we always maintain consistent schedules. We use an essential tool called the Milk Taxi. The Milk Taxi offers several benefits. It ensures proper homogenization and heats the milk to the required temperature. It also keeps the milk at this temperature for a certain period, allowing me to transport it directly to the calves and feed them using nipple buckets. The milk is dispensed at the ideal temperature, which is crucial for optimal nutrient absorption. Consistent feeding times and temperatures are extremely important for the calves' growth and development. This tool is now indispensable for our feeding process. It also helps with transportation, eliminating the need to carry heavy buckets. This has been especially important for me, as I used to carry buckets for a long time. Thanks to God, we were able to invest in this equipment, which has greatly improved efficiency. Tasks that used to take 30 minutes can now be completed in just 5 minutes, allowing me to feed about 20 calves in that time. The equipment is practical, easy to use, and highly efficient. Interns enjoy learning how to handle it as it sparks their interest. For me, it's an essential tool that not only improves productivity, but also supports ergonomic health. The calf pens were designed following animal welfare guidelines. We avoided placing them directly on the ground due to the high humidity and cold temperatures in our region. During winter, it gets very cold here. Elevating the pens helps prevent cold drafts from affecting the calves. We also provide ample straw bedding, which further insulates them and reduces the risk of respiratory diseases. Even on hotter days, when temperatures can reach a maximum of 37 degrees Celsius and drop to a minimum of 13 or 14 degrees Celsius, this temperature fluctuation can be stressful for the calves. That's why nursery management is so important. We focus not only on cleanliness, but also on comfort to ensure the calves' well-being.
I'm Fabrizio Vallerini from Nova Esperanza Farming, located in the municipality of Vespasiano Correa. Here, we are entering the barn we call Lot 3, which is dedicated exclusively to primiparous cows. This lot, established about 2 years ago, represents one of the most important management strategies we've implemented. Managing these animals separately has brought significant improvements because, when mixed with older, larger cows, competition becomes a big challenge for them. Throughout our discussion today, you'll notice that our farm's management philosophy revolves around simplifying processes and executing basic management practices effectively. This approach to management is simple yet highly impactful, even if it takes time to implement, such as finding a specific space for these animals. For instance, this dedicated lot brought considerable benefits. Similarly, we'll discuss the postpartum lot shortly. Creating specific lots may seem complex at first, requiring more effort and potentially complicating routines compared to grouping all animals together. However, if such management practices pay for themselves without relying on external inputs, they are more than worthwhile. For us, this is evident. This type of management delivers returns and is indispensable. Currently, our first lactation cows are producing between 46 and 48 liters per cow per day. This indicates excellent performance for first lactation cows at this stage of their production cycle. They are responding very well to the management strategies we have implemented. Next to this, we have the postpartum lot. The postpartum lot is more recent, created in March of this year. It was something we had envisioned for a long time, but finding the right space to establish it was a challenge. This wasn't something that could be done just anywhere. It required careful planning. A larger space was needed to provide more comfort, along with features such as sprinklers and ventilation systems. This setup required a significant investment. However, like the primiparous lot, the results have been outstanding. For the postpartum lot, the benefits are even greater because this management focuses on a short but crucial period, early lactation. that impacts the entire lactation cycle of the cow. If we achieve an additional 2 to 3 liters of milk production on average in this lot, that increase will persist throughout the cow's lactation period. It's in decisions like these that we need to focus our efforts. Often, too much time is spent debating products or inputs, and not enough is dedicated to internal decisions that only depend on us. Currently, the postpartum lot averages around 36 to 38 liters per cow per day, with a days in milk of about 10 to 12 days. This is a very good average for their stage, and these cows are off to an excellent start. Today, after discussing with Ranieri, we decided to use choline. Currently, we are still considering the use of methionine. These products and supplements require a lot of reflection before being implemented. We aim to ensure that there is scientific evidence supporting their benefits. Ranieri has been instrumental in verifying whether these products truly deliver results. Once there is clear scientific evidence and confidence in their effectiveness, we start using them. Once we begin using a product, it's unlikely we will stop because of the concern that production might drop or performance might decline. Sometimes, though, other factors might coincidentally cause a reduction, creating a false impression that stopping a product was the cause. Similarly, if a random management change improves results, it might incorrectly attribute credit to the product. Therefore, farms need to test these products. But decisions cannot be based solely on such tests, especially since isolating variables on the farm is nearly impossible. Our postpartum management is generally simple regarding the diet. We currently only add choline but adjust the diet based on the requirements outlined in manuals. We aim to provide slightly less energy, more fiber, and prioritize comfort to encourage maximum dry matter intake. This helps them transition smoothly and prepares them well for their next stage, either moving to the primiparous lot if they are first lactation cows, or to the high production lot if they are high producing cows. Regarding the cooling system, we have gone through several stages of upgrades. In the past, cooling systems were still a relatively new concept in Brazil. Initially, we installed fans in our first freestall barn, which provided some relief. However, the real impact of cooling came after we followed technical guidance from a consultancy. We installed sprinkler systems, which are now present in all barns, especially in the holding area. This area is where the main cooling happens, with wind speeds of at least 3.5 to 4 meters per second and sprinkler lines at an appropriate height of 1.8 to 2.2 meters. When we created the postpartum lot, we ensured the necessary infrastructure was in place before introducing the animals. Today, this cooling system is also available for dry cows and prepartum cows, and the prepartum area even has a better system with double sprinkler lines. In this barn, we couldn't implement double lines due to limitations caused by sawdust replacement requirements, as tractors need access. However, we compensate with the cooling provided in the holding area. Cows receive a 50-minute cooling session before each of the 3 daily milkings. Additionally, they have a midday shower at around 10:30 a.m., which is automated. We block their access to the bedding by closing the headlocks, ensuring they remain in the feeding area, where water sprays continuously on their backs. This encourages cooling while they eat. The bedding is managed daily, with lime applied on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, around 1 kilogram per application for a total of 20 kilograms each time. Sawdust is replenished once a week, though we aim to increase this to twice weekly. Currently, the tractor needed for this is in high demand, which sometimes delays the process. We acknowledge the need for more frequent replenishment, but haven't fully implemented it yet. The same personnel managing the bedding also handle the cleaning of the water troughs. Each time someone enters the barn, they check the troughs to ensure cleanliness and adequate water levels. Once a day, the water is drained, the troughs are scrubbed, and fresh water is added. The alleyways are cleaned using a scraper system, which operates multiple times a day, typically 4 or 5 times. Since the system is older and lacks an automatic shutoff feature in case of a jam, we manually operate it when we are around managing tasks. Usually, the scraper is activated when the cows head to the milking parlor, or whenever we notice a buildup of manure. This automated cleaning simplifies the process. Our farm has been in dairy production for over 40 years, spanning several generations, starting with my parents and Andresa's parents, who were the first to focus on milk production as the primary activity. We underwent a family succession process to reorganize the farm. Today, the farm operates under a restructured partnership model with 5 partners, including my parents, Andresa, my brother, and myself. Additionally, we have the 7 employees Andresa mentioned earlier. Currently, we have about 100 lactating cows, occasionally reaching up to 105. The total herd comprises 210 animals, including other categories, as well as some beef cattle, for which we use beef semen for surplus breeding. Our total cultivated area is around 90 hectares, primarily for corn. We maintain a surplus area for flexibility because, while recent harvests have yielded good silage volumes, drought years demand much larger areas to produce sufficient silage. In good years, 30 hectares suffice for silage production. However, since we also produce our own high-moisture corn grain for the diet, as well as dry corn grain, we harvest and store it on the farm. We prepare the feed rations on site, purchasing only the minerals and mixing them into the rations ourselves. This creates a self-sufficient production cycle that serves multiple purposes on the farm. Our farm sees a constant influx of people, whether new employees or through our internship program, which accommodates 3 interns at a time for 3-month rotations. This results in a high turnover of individuals interacting with the property. Effective communication is crucial due to this constant turnover. To streamline routines and avoid repeatedly explaining the layout of each sector, we introduced clear visual communication systems. This initiative gained traction after participating in the milk quality program at Clínica do Leite, which significantly broadened our perspective on farm organization. Optimizing systems and environments across the property has visibly improved routines and efficiency. We decided to include English on the signs as part of this effort. By adding English terms, we prepare for the future and encourage staff to familiarize themselves with the language, which is increasingly vital in today's globalized world. Regarding silage management, this is a sector where we have invested significantly in recent years. Many experts emphasize the value stored beneath a silage tarp, so we have made improvements to protect this resource while also simplifying handling and management. In the past, we used tarps with soil as a method of silage storage. Soil is one of the best materials for preserving silage, but it is difficult to handle. With the transition from predominantly family labor to hired labor, we noticed that workers are less inclined to endure such physically demanding tasks. Previously, as a family business, these challenges were often overlooked, but we've evolved to explore existing options and resources to simplify management. An example of this evolution is the use of a protective cover that goes over the tarp, secured with sandbags or gravel bags. These greatly simplify handling during both silage sealing and opening. They also give the storage area a more organized and cleaner appearance. While this is an upfront investment, the material can be used for many years if handled carefully during removal and storage to avoid damage. This investment also allows for better monitoring of the silo's condition. For instance, you can easily check whether the silo is properly sealed or detect signs of rodent activity, enabling timely control measures. We are currently at the end of the silage silo, transitioning to a new one today. Transitioning between silos is something that Janieri constantly reminds us to prioritize. It's easy to become complacent in daily routines, but having someone to push us helps maintain focus. This transition phase is an excellent example of getting the basics right. Not long ago, we would wait until one silo was completely empty before opening another. It was simpler and avoided having 2 silos open at the same time. However, after hearing so many experts emphasize the importance of a proper transition, it started to resonate with us. When you hear the same advice repeatedly, it's usually because it matters. Over time, we've adjusted and seen positive results. In the past, with lower production averages, the impact might not have been noticeable. However, at today's higher production levels, cows are more sensitive to changes, such as differences in the smell and fermentation of the silage. While the person handling the silage may not notice these subtleties, a cow consuming 35 kilograms of silage daily will detect the difference when switching from one silo to another. The foundation of any milk production operation is proper management and consistent routines. This doesn't mean we are perfect. We still have plenty of areas to improve. The key is recognizing these areas, identifying issues, and working to address them. Over time, we've seen results from changes we initially resisted or struggled with. Once implemented, these changes have often revealed underlying problems that could only be resolved by altering our approach. Another improvement that has significantly facilitated our management is the creation of feed docks and feed bays. These structures enhance organization and streamline the routine for those feeding the animals. Since we have multiple lots and feeding sessions, the operator frequently moves with the feed wagon to load feed. This setup ensures proper storage in a suitable environment, free of moisture. There's no mud to mix or contaminate the feed, as everything is under cover. The bay's house materials like cotton seeds, soybean hulls, and hay. We chop the hay, but currently, we don't use hay for high production lots. Instead, we rely on pre-dried forage and corn silage chopped to the appropriate size. Hay is only used for postpartum and prepartum cows, not for lactating cows and other production lots. Therefore, hay consumption is not very high. We also have a feed room where soybean meal is stored and mixed. The soybean meal includes a blend of conventional and bypass soybean meal. This is mixed with pre-mixed concentrate and ground corn in the same feed wagon. This setup not only simplifies feeding, but also enables bulk purchasing of feed ingredients at a lower cost. Instead of buying smaller quantities or bagged feed, we purchase entire truckloads, which last for several months and allow us to negotiate better prices. Our cows are managed in a confined system, focusing on maximizing production under this system. For certain rearing phases, we do use pastures. We are currently adjusting grazing management in rotational paddocks with jigs, using areas unsuitable for crops like hilly terrain, for some primiparis rearing categories. This is the oldest barn on the property, housing the high production and low production groups, lots 1 and 2. It's a freestall barn with open sides built in 2000. The barn has limitations in terms of dimensions, as construction standards were different at the time. While we make it work, the spacing of the stalls and other measurements are now outdated. Despite these challenges, we've managed to maintain effective operations here. The barn is equipped with a sprinkler system. During the midday shower, we restrict access to the beds, encouraging cows to stay in the feeding line. As I mentioned earlier, this isn't an ideal setup because there isn't enough space for all cows in the sprinkling area. Additionally, there are side troughs without sprinklers. However, we do our best with the existing infrastructure and supplement with pre-milking showers, which we aim to run for at least 50 minutes, though they often last closer to an hour. While the structure imposes some limitations, we adapt to make the most of what we have. The high production and primiparis groups receive 3 feedings per day, and the diet remains the same for both groups. Due to limited capacity in the feed wagon, we split the feedings into 3 sessions. This has the added benefit of providing an extra feeding. Other groups, such as prepartum cows and primiparis, are fed once per day. Most other lactating groups receive 2 feedings daily. For the primiparis diet, we use feed refusals from the bunks combined with wheat silage. The dry cow diet is different, as it includes only wheat silage and salt in the feed bunk for voluntary access to provide necessary minerals. Regarding feed push-ups, we try to do this as often as possible. On busier days, when the team is understaffed, we at least push feed during key times, when they are brought in for showers, before they come back from milking, or at the end of shifts, before midday, or in the evening. This results in feed being pushed up about 6 to 7 times a day. However, the frequency varies. When we have more staff or interns around, it's done more often, as those circulating around the farm can take care of it. We understand that the more frequently feed is pushed up, the better, so we prioritize this task whenever possible. Regarding milk production and composition, we strive for high yields while maintaining the health and well-being of the animals. Even though we aren't currently paid directly based on milk solids, we prioritize maintaining higher fat content. The high production lot rarely drops below 3.8% fat, generally ranging between 3.8% and 4.0%, depending on conditions. For protein, the levels are around 3.23% to 3.25%. Milk urea nitrogen ranges from 3.12 to 3.15, depending on feed variations. We aim to keep these levels stable, avoiding significant deviations. Milk production in the high production lot is currently around 56 to 57 liters per cow per day. The low production lot tends to have higher fat content, around 4.2 to 4.3%, due to a less energy-dense diet. Protein levels are about 3.5 to 3.6%, and MUN is slightly lower, ranging from 10 to 12. depending on the time of year. Production in this lot ranges between 44 and 46 liters per cow per day. For primiparous cows, the milk composition is theoretically similar, as we don't collect separate milk samples, and their diet is the same. The postpartum cow's milk isn't analyzed separately either. As I mentioned earlier, the general average is 49 liters. This is an optimal scenario, particularly during the peak of BST use. Toward the end of the BST cycle, production decreases slightly, falling to around 45 to 46 liters. Milk production fluctuates between 45 and 49 liters during this time of year. However, the yearly average is about 45 to 46 liters, as production was lower earlier in the year. At the beginning of the year, production peaked at around 44 to 45 liters due to transitioning from last year's silage, which came from a drought-affected crop. Over the last 3 months, this transition has marked a turning point, resulting in improved yields. We had a silage with extremely high dry matter content and very low digestibility. It did contain starch, but it was less digestible due to the droughts that occurred here in Rio Grande do Sul. When we transition to our current silage, although it has a lower starch content, it is made from greener plants with more leaves and higher digestibility. The crop was harvested at a more optimal and appropriate stage. As a result, we started to see improvements in our production averages. However, the improvement wasn't as significant as it could have been because we were still dealing with the effects of last year's challenges, including the floods. These were two completely opposite scenarios. In September, we experienced severe flooding in the region, which left us unable to access the fields for an entire month. We were supposed to harvest the pre-dried forage in September, but could only begin in mid-October. This delayed harvest pushed the crop past its optimal cutting point, resulting in overly mature, fibrous forage that lost a lot of quality. We had to use this material, but the cows didn't perform well. Their production stagnated. When we finally transitioned from the poor quality pre-dried forage and corn silage to the higher quality silage from this year's harvest, we achieved much higher production levels. Just this change in the type of feed harvested in different seasons boosted our average production by about 4 to 5 liters per cow. It was as though we added a third milking session simply by improving the quality of stored feed. This highlights how certain factors are beyond our control. The farm is essentially an open-air factory, where weather and environmental conditions significantly impact outcomes. Inside the barn, we can manage the cows and keep them cool. But when it comes to what comes from the fields, we are at the mercy of the weather. Our region is very hilly, so we don't have irrigated fields. It's simply not feasible to irrigate here. This makes us heavily reliant on rainfall and the climate. Earlier, we were discussing the structural aspects of the older barn, including the feed bunk. The feed bunk is an example. It's a deep bunk, and I can't recall the exact term for it, but it's a design we wouldn't use today. In my opinion, shallow feed bunks are better because they make cleaning and maintenance much easier. This particular bunk has too many corners, which is problematic. We mitigated some of the issues last year by improving the bunk's base. It used to have a very poor surface. If you look closely, you'll notice we applied a coating. The base now has a resin layer. It's actually an epoxy paint, creating a layer a few millimeters thick that prevents silage from sticking. Unfortunately, this material can't be used on the walls, so we use a different paint on the walls to reduce adherence and make them less likely to accumulate dirt. Even so, the bunks still require periodic washing and cleaning. This particular bunk has more corners and spaces where dirt and silage can accumulate, which adds to our challenges. We need to stay vigilant and clean it frequently to keep it in good condition. Another issue is that we plan to replace the sprinkler nozzles. The current ones are no longer the most suitable, as they produce a very fine mist, which wets the barrier walls excessively and causes silage on the feed rails to ferment. We intend to switch to nozzles that produce larger droplets. Additionally, this older ventilation system does not yet have variable speed fans. When the sprinklers are turned on, the fans continue running at full speed, blowing water droplets onto the feed. This is an area where we need to invest in improvements. Upgrading this system would require significant investment, which we haven't done yet due to other priorities. These adjustments are made gradually, prioritizing what is most critical. Not everything we do is ideal, and it's important to acknowledge that. For lactating cows, we use a free stall system. Meanwhile, in another, newer barn, we house dry cows, prepartum cows, and primiparis. This barn is set up as a compost barn. Why did we choose this system? For these categories, it simplifies management. Those familiar with different management systems understand that certain systems are more labor-intensive. Let me clarify. In terms of daily labor, the compost barn system allows for greater mechanization. For example, in a free stall, which has individual stalls, daily maintenance is more manual and labor-intensive. In the compost barn, a tractor can perform most of the cleaning and bedding aeration, making the process far more mechanized and efficient. For these categories, prepartum and dry cows, the comfort level is higher. The cows are freer and more relaxed. That's why we use this system for these groups. Additionally, there's no issue with different stall sizes, which can be a concern in a free stall system. For instance, when dealing with heifers, primiparis cows, or mature cows, varying stall dimensions would need to be considered. In the compost barn, we simply adjust the space allocated to the animals. Using barriers with springs, we limit the area based on the number of animals, making it a system we are very satisfied with. It has made management much easier. After building the barn last year, we also established a dedicated calving pen. While not all cows calve in this pen, it depends on someone identifying that the cow is about to give birth and moving her to the pen. A significant percentage of calvings now happen there. Having people circulating among the animals throughout the day, especially since we don't limit this to morning or evening shifts, helps identify cows in labor and move them to the calving pen. This ensures the calving process occurs in a cleaner and more suitable environment. This setup prevents the cows from giving birth on bedding materials like sawdust, which can be more contaminated compared to cleaner options like hay bedding. The bedding management for these groups is straightforward. Since these are dry cows and prepartum cows, their dry matter intake is much lower than that of lactating cows, resulting in less manure production. We aerate the bedding regularly with a harrow, and when we notice the bedding level dropping, we top it up with fresh sawdust as needed. We monitor the bedding across all areas, not just for dry and prepartum cows, but also for the primiparis, and replenish it as needed. The alleyways are scraped once a day using a specific scraper attached to a tractor. This scraper has a blade fitted with a rubber strip from a tire to effectively clear the area. In the free stall system, the bedding management is similar to what we do for the postpartum and primiparis cows. However, since the flooring is slatted, we don't need to scrape it daily. The manure falls through the slats into a manure pit beneath the cows. Still, we aim to clean the slatted floor weekly by using a high-pressure hose to wash away any excess sawdust or manure that accumulates on the surface. Sometimes, if weekly cleaning isn't possible, we do it every 2 weeks. Whenever possible, we carry out this washing and cleaning to maintain cleanliness, even on slatted floors. As for silage storage, most of our silos are trench silos. More recently, we have started using a bunker silo system, with both ends open, which offers additional flexibility. The advantage of this bunker silo system is that it makes management more flexible. For instance, it allows access to materials, such as pre-dried forage, in a more practical way. We began filling the silo from the front to the back with pre-dried forage during the first cut. As additional cuts of pre-dried forage were harvested, we continued filling it. This setup enables us to use the material from the front of the silo, which has undergone longer fermentation, while the material toward the back is more recently fermented. Because the silo has 2 open ends, it provides the flexibility to manage inventory. For example, we can close off one end after use, refill it from that side, and then switch to accessing the other end. This dual access approach greatly facilitates management. Adjacent to this silo, we have the high moisture corn storage system, which we manage using sausage silos or tube silos. While I'm not sure of the exact technical term for this system, it involves a third-party company that handles the harvest and bagging process for us. The harvested corn is packed into these silos, resembling large bags or sausages. We store around 3,000 bags of corn annually, which is approximately our yearly consumption of high-moisture corn grain.
The key differentiator of this farm is the impressive production numbers we've been able to achieve. thanks to the Mike Hutchins course, which I often recommend to anyone wanting to excel in this field. This course has helped us refine the diet significantly. A few years ago, high production levels meant achieving 40 to 42 litres with 3 milkings per day. Today we're reaching 50 litres on many farms, and even farms with 2 milkings per day are producing 40 litres. These are remarkable numbers. I believe the turning point was implementing insights from the Mike Hutchins course alongside the new NASEM guidelines. These advancements allowed us to precisely quantify the amino acid balance. We've moved away from focusing on crude protein to metabolizable protein. Similarly, we no longer rely on crude starch levels, but rather on starch fermentation. This shift has greatly improved our ability to assess silage and feed quality and determine which ingredients to use. In the past, we struggled to understand why some farms responded better to diets with crude starch levels of 26 to 28%. Now, we know that factors like the ensiling duration and corn variety make a significant difference. Today, we can quantify how much starch will ferment and use that data to guide the farm's starch utilization strategy. For example, we currently aim for a fermentation peak of approximately 20%. This level provides a clear direction and allows us to confidently work with higher crude starch levels. By optimizing the use of high-moisture corn at ideal levels, we've achieved not only high production averages, but also healthier animals. This balance has enabled us to demand more from the cows while ensuring their well-being.
As mentioned throughout the video, we always focus on the basics. Consistency has become a keyword for our team in recent times. Achieving consistency in all aspects of management is only possible with a well-aligned team, where everyone strives to do their best, even on challenging days when personal issues arise. The success of this farm and of all of us involved is thanks to every individual working here. Each team member, each collaborator, plays a vital role. It's not just me or Andresa, we are here to assist and guide. But the actual work described throughout the farm is done by the team. The people here handle milking, monitor for mastitis, and manage the cow's health. For example, a cow with mastitis won't eat well, which affects her overall performance. In the rearing phase, others step in to cover Andresa's role when necessary. Feeding, in particular, is one of the most challenging tasks. It requires daily loading of feed in consistent quantities, paying attention to every detail. For instance, if someone notices mold in the silage and ignores it, loading it into the wagon without addressing it, the consistency is compromised. This can lead to a cow eating the mold, falling ill, and reducing production. These small details highlight the importance of having a team that understands how crucial their work is within the overall system. The farm functions like a machine, and if one person fails to perform their role, the entire operation can face problems. This is the machinery garage, and adjacent to it we have a silo that was part of an emitter project. I'm not sure if it exists in other parts of the state, but here in Rio Grande do Sul, it's becoming quite common on family farms. This silo allows producers to store grain harvested on the farm. After harvest, we perform a preliminary cleaning and load the grain into the silo while it is still moist. The silo has a powerful fan that uses natural air at ambient temperature to dehydrate the grain. The process continues until the grain reaches around 14% moisture, which is the optimal level for storage. Once the grain is at this level, we carry out fumigation and pest control to preserve it. Throughout the year, we gradually use this grain. We remove it from the silo via an auger, transfer it to the top, pass it through a mill, and prepare feed mixes. In the feed room, we have a 500 kilogram mixer and a scale. We prepare around 5 or 6 mixes weekly for lactating cows. These mixes typically include a mineral core, bicarbonate, oxides, a toxin binder, and other additives. For postpartum and prepartum cows, choline is also added, along with some yeast. Having the capacity to mix feed directly on the farm simplifies operations and enables us to use corn that might otherwise have been sold at a lower price or purchased at a higher price. Utilizing this surplus corn within the farm helps optimize costs and resources,